Well, hi there, Steve.
Hey, Doug.
How are you today?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Let me- How's the well gosh, you're in
Well, hi there,
Nashville,
Steve.
but
Hey, Doug.
for whatever reason your skyline looks a little bit different from the sky looks a little bit different.
It does. Goofball.
So wow, what an exciting conversation we're gonna have today about changing the real estate industry. Are you ready for this?
I am and have been.
All right. Well, let's talk about it because from at least from when I first and just just for those that don't know you, maybe you can share before we get in our conversation. Let's Why don't you share a little bit about who you are, where you're from, your role, what your dog's name is, a little bit about yourself.
Well, Steve McDonald, and I'm Director of Professional Development for Tennessee Realtors. I've been here 4 years, and I'm tasked with being a steward of professional development in our state, making sure that our members are well trained. And previously, I was with the Real Estate Commission as Director of Education there, so I had a good handle on the regulatory function of education and professional development for our licensees. And then I was a real estate practitioner for 7 years. I'm an SOB. I'm a son of a broker. So I've been in real estate all of my life.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, so you got to tell me. I mean, you've worn multiple hats, and looking at education now, we had an interesting discussion. I mean, it first started off about doing something at your convention this September in Nashville, or not Nashville,
Knoxville.
Knoxville. Thank you. And we talked about learning and about different opportunities and issues really that the industry is facing, especially as realtor associations with education as the number one source as non-dues revenue when one of their greatest value propositions. It's a little on the decline because there's so much of it out there, right? And
Yes.
so it's like, how do you not so much differentiate, but demonstrate the value in order to make sure that, what we're doing is relevant and applicable, right?
Yes. We're looked upon as being at the state level of ensuring that we're raising the bar and moving the needle.
Yeah, and so in moving the needle, what's interesting is how the success of real estate education today. We start to ask this question. Whether you're a broker, you're an agent, or you're in your role. If you're going to move the needle, don't you first have to measure it? And the challenge that I see, at least from growing up, being a real estate practitioner myself, starting out, and kind of like moving my ranks to the consultant that I am today. The success of real estate education is based off of how many hours that you sit in or the letters behind your name, but not necessarily whether or not you implement something that improves the condition of your business or the condition of the client. So in looking at this and trying to create something that's scalable, I want to maybe ask you from the conversation we have, because it's not about what I say, it's about what we collaborate together. What were some of those things that you found to be maybe different, and why we kind of like chose to work together in this program?
Well, you and I had a very long discussion about some of our needs and wants, and you have presented a topic about no one has ever gone back and be able to test how well education is utilized, and that's a good starting point, and we need a good measuring stick for that, because all that the Real Estate Commission does in this our state book is regulate how many hours you're supposed to take. And for many, it's just a box that they have to check.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like so education, if you have to ask, if you ask 100 people in the room to raise their hand, like, why are you here? And 90% of the people say, I'm just here for the continuing education. Well, they're not there necessarily to learn. They're just there to what? Get their credits and
Get their credits and move on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what type of impact does that have on the consumer that they're representing with, they're just there for the credits and not for, you can't even measure what they've actually done to, to improve it.
Right. You need to be perceived as the expert, and you are dealing with, whether it be a smaller end property or an entry level property or a large commercial tract, whatever your involvement is, that's in real estate is important, and it impacts somebody. And so you need to be an expert. And I have a feeling that if you had to respond to judge and jury, they would say you do have a license. It's a private property right to hold that license. You had to maintain it. You're perceived as the expert by the public. So why aren't you trained to sharpen your skills in your craft that you've chosen?
Yeah. And I think from our discussion, what we found was the biggest leverage point to create this impact was to work really and directly with the instructors who create the curriculum, who deliver the curriculum, whether it's in the classroom or this remote, kind of like we're doing now, and also be able to market it, right? Because if you have the best course and nobody knows about it, can't get the word out, then there's no value that's actually been delivered. I think there's a difference between created value and then understood value. And so I think that's kind of like what we're working on is the understood value, where we can actually quantify it and then put it back on the member to say, hey, look, we were able to increase our business by X. We were able to reduce the number of complaints that we received, or money that we saved, a client based off of recommendations that we made. I think so many times we create this great education, but we don't actually pull out the language from members of what they talk about the value is, and then share it back with them so that, oh, you know what, maybe I should take that course rather than just, checking that box.
Absolutely. There's not a class that helps you instruct unless you're going to be a teacher, whether you're a professor or you've had some type of specialized training as an educator. And that's what we're wanting to do. We're wanting folks to start from the very beginning. So they're not a sage on the stage. That's fantastic that if you're seasoned enough and you've got enough exposure to real world scenarios, you can share them. But let's find a way that we can temper that energy and put it into a structure with developing course objectives, following what's going to be in the class, and making sure that you can appeal to an adult learner. And that's really what I'm seeking. That's what I need, because I know there's larger and smaller states. We have 26,000 members, and it's time that we up the education game.
And it's interesting with those that have been teaching for a while, now that we have some of the new technology to be able to engage your learners, and now that the real estate, the average realtor, I forget what the number is. It always changes. It's like 55 or something like that. It's on the higher end, but are participants younger now than they have been? I mean, they've got to be. You've got to be able to connect with these learners and not just read off PowerPoints and.
Implementing technology in the classroom is key. I mean, you and I are connecting. You're pseudo Nashville. Our skyline's changed a little bit. You're up the road in St. Louis, and you and I are communicating now. This is a fun way to facilitate a meeting and discuss a project. But if you go into a classroom today, this is what you see. You're actually educating this very top of people's head. Yeah. So why not? If folks love their phones so much, if they love their tablets and their technology, find ways to get them engaged with it. And I enjoy that. If I go to a conference and there's a poll, or we can play and do some gamification from the classroom, absolutely. I'm going to take away so much more from that.
Well, so in looking at this, looking at what we put together, right? We've put together this program where it's not a day or it's not 2 days. And I'm gonna kind of get on my soapbox here, as I've attended so many of these like sessions, whether it's an hour or two, or it's a 1 day or 2 day, I get all these notes, and then I get, maybe I implement a couple things, but I get so overwhelmed that I go back to, business as usual, and a year later, not much has changed. And so, when we looked at putting this together, it's like, if we're going to move performance for the industry, let's move performance for the instructor, right? So if we look at an instructor from call it their practice, if you will, kind of like a real estate practice, you have the instructor's practice. Well, how many different skill categories and data points can we put into place to be able to demonstrate performance so that we can really build the ultimate instructor that is not only a subject matter expert, but just because you're a subject matter expert doesn't mean that you're a curriculum builder, doesn't mean you're a training delivery specialist, doesn't mean that you're a panelist or a facilitator or all of those other roles. So what we're trying to do is kind of build the ultimate talent development professional, so that we can really we can at the end of it, hopefully, Steve, you can say to your Tennessee Real Estate Education Foundation trustees, look, we were able to move the needle across these just different skill areas, and this is the impact that we have. That, I mean, where does that ever happen where in your report you can actually say, look, as a result of doing this, we were able to increase by X or Y with education? It's just other than we can get into revenue and operational costs on how that can go. That can go either way. But I'm interested in to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Well, it's very easy to get back into the rut of familiarity. As educators and leaders in professional development, I mean, we're sponges when we get taught things, but when we get back to our office, all those notes that we took and our plans to implement become pushed further away. And so for us, as the body that is the education arm for our association, we finally just took a stand and said, look, we've got to start somewhere. Will this be an overnight process? No. Do we want to do it right? Absolutely. So we're going to take the time, go through the steps. We're going to evaluate and recalculate until we get something that is good and works well for us. And so it was a matter of just saying, look, this is what we're going to do.
Well, we've got well, thank you for sharing that. We have one of our friends, our colleagues.
Hey, Deb.
Deborah Walben Hernandez from the Texas Association of Realtors. I think right now she's got her audio on. I don't know if she'll have her webcam. Deb, can you hear us?
It's telling me I can't start my video because the host has stopped it.
Oh no. Okay. All right. Well, we can at least. Unfortunately, we can't see your bright and shiny mug.
Oh, that was the whole bill of sale for me today. As I get to see your face.
I don't know what's going on. It just says that I can't do it, so I don't know what to do.
All right. If
Alex should feel like a rose between two thorns right now. He's got two TAR folks, one from Texas and one from Tennessee. So it's very easy, Doug, that you can use TREC and TAR. That's part of your vernacular. It's easy.
Well, I'm sure one of you will be able to figure this out along the way here, but just, I'm watching you anyway. I'm here.
Who's cuter? She didn't
Deb, I invited you on because we've known each other, a long time, and you've seen a lot, and you've done a lot of these different types of programs, and you're the person that I kind of turn to when it comes to really getting down to brass tacks here. Not just filling time slots and checking boxes, but really like looking at education from a strategic level. And I'm just curious from some of the things that we've shared, and I don't think we've shared with anybody else, like what are we actually doing? Like we've talked about kind of like high level, but as far as deliverables, we show up for a day or two. But before we like dive into that, I'm kind of curious, just based off of our conversation, what are some things that you kind of say, well, wait a minute, that's a little bit different than what I've seen before. I'm curious to see what you think about it.
Yeah, I think, most of the time we go to the student to get feedback, and we have not gone to the instructor, to find out, to get that kind of feedback. So I think that's a little different. Our philosophy here is, as far as with my team, we're trying to do everything we can to increase the impact that we have on Realtor members. So anything that we can get that helps us with those analytics is going to be helpful.
Yeah.
That is helpful.
So let's talk a little about these analytics, because I know that from like what data are we actually measuring? Like nobody's ever done that before. What are we actually doing? So I'm just going to kind of share some of these. I think there's 10 different skill categories. There's 100 different data points. Number one is on communicating value. And what was interesting, I think even Deb, you said this, and when I shared this with you, communicating value, you said, well, don't you think educators know the value that they deliver? But time after time, if we were asked them to calculate it, or how to be able to retrieve it and then spit it back, it's probably one of the biggest opportunities to increase registrations, and attendance at events.
I agree with you, because you've got to share the meaning, and that's the whole part of communication. So.
Yeah, I think the value, that's something that we absolutely have to focus on right now. As an association, we have to do everything we can to work together to try to convey the value that we bring. And as a result of that, we have a huge responsibility to make sure that the education that we're providing to our members is the best quality that's out there, because then we can truthfully and honestly look them in the eye and say, you're not going to get better tools than you will get from your association.
Awesome. And so 10 different questions on that. And just, it's like, I think tangibles, intangibles, and risk are part of the big one. I think even the first question is how vital is your course to the success of the real estate agent? Well, if people don't need it, they're not going to take it. So that's one of them. The second skill category is on course creation. So I know a lot of instructors out there teach other people's material. At the same time, if they teach other people's material, they might have to tweak it, in order to be able to support their own, delivery style or whatever it might be. So, I mean, what from either Steve or Deb on the course creation side, what type of opportunities do you see there?
Well, for Tennessee, I don't have a background in education. I know enough about Bloom's taxonomy that if I needed to brush up on a course really quickly, I could go to my Bloom's taxonomy and make sure that I'm following. But our instructors need that baseline. They need to understand it.
And here in Texas, we've just recently moved to a model where we've gone away. We had a content manager who managed and wrote all of our content for like 10 years. And then she decided that she was going to be at home with her kids. And so that left us with this huge void. And what we realized is that having someone in-house to depend on for all of our content was really unrealistic. And so we are now looking at our instructors and other content writers to contract out to get that content, because we just can't expect one person to have that depth of knowledge, right off the chute, so we're contracting out all of our content at this point. And so if, training the instructors to be able to write content and provide content is something that I would see a huge value in, so.
Well, speaking of content, you look at learning objectives. What I see on this is there's the kind of the task-oriented learning objective.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the performance learning objective that then, as a result of doing it, you're able to increase or decrease, right? Decrease the number of complaints by doing this. And even for video, if we're using video as an example, we'll list the 10 steps to create a video tour for real estate. Well, gosh, that's anybody could write a list, but if I were to ask you to increase the conversion rate, online conversion rate using a video tour, I mean that's a totally different way of looking at something that then frames the way to then calculate the ROI for education. Just as a quick example. Another one skill categories number 3 is on course compliance. How many of these courses actually get approved the first time, right? Or do they never get approved? And how do we decrease? So it's kind of not an assessment question, but kind of a follow-up question is how do we make your jobs easier? Deb, Steve, and then those that are on the commission, so that they don't have to kind of go back and forth, and instructors can get it right the first time. Do you see any opportunities there?
Well, we don't having a lot of issues with getting courses approved per se. We've moved to kind of a different model, which I know a lot of licensing agencies probably wouldn't go along with, but we actually are providing our content, like a description of it, and they approve it that way, and then the instructor has the actual content. So we've kind of separated the approval from the actual delivery, and it's something that we've been able to do, but I don't think a lot of states would do that. So I see a lot of value in having some really crisp objectives that match what the licensing agency is looking for.
Yeah, our scenario is different, of course. The course is approved, the instructor is ancillary to that material, but we like to submit a very solid package when it goes to the Real Estate Commission. We do have a very good relationship with our commission, but we never want to make it a slam dunk with every class that we think that we submit, that it's just going to be a carte blanche stamp. So I want to ensure that the timed outline matches the course objectives, and there's learning principles, and there's adequate backup material. I'm a rule follower.
There's a couple other skill categories. I'm gonna skip over some of the kind of the ones that we know that we've been doing it for a while, like learning aids, training delivery techniques is another one. Interestingly enough, I'm gonna kind of skip ahead to number 7 on remote training experience, or kind of the hybrid model. Now, I think Deb, you were the first one in the industry to create this model where it was a hybrid of live and remote at the same time. Share a little bit about that, because I think even Steve is trying to figure out this model as well, or working on it right now. I'd love to hear more about it.
Sure. Well, we had a situation where Texas, it's a little big, in case you hadn't noticed. But it's hard to reach some of these outlying areas, and it's really difficult for the member to have to travel to get education. And so we started using Zoom and a system called VTEL to broadcast to our remote locations, and it was approved as live classroom. The way it was done that way is because we did have the live, the audio and visual connection with the remote locations, and we're now delivering classes to up to 25 locations at a time. Sometimes we have people in the classroom where the instructor is, and sometimes we don't. We have found that it's almost better if the instructor doesn't have anybody in the classroom, because then there are no distractions. But it is a different learning, it's a different skill set, and it takes a little bit of practice to get to the point where you're interacting with the outlying students to the point where they actually are getting something out of the course and aren't feeling disconnected from that instructor.
Mm-hmm. I had the privilege of seeing Texas, their setup, and we are fortunate. We do have a TV studio here in our building, and thanks to Texas's model and our commissioners being forward thinking and knowing that on live education existed, we were able to put the proposition in front of them, and they approved it as well. And they put some parameters on it that we do have a proctor in each location. And I've taken Deb's advice of not having folks with the instructor that's teaching in the remote locations, just to ensure that the main focus is on those folks in the remote field. But Deb's brought up a very good point, is you've got to think about and embody yourself in all of those locations while you're standing, whether you're in Austin or Nashville, and understand that real estate's practiced in different parts of the area, and being able to talk about relevance no matter where you're live streaming to.
It is a challenge, and we've been very fortunate that we've got some really good systems worked out, but it does take some time for the instructor to get acclimated to teaching in that environment, because it's completely different than teaching in front of a live classroom. But I tell you, we get so many compliments and accolades for providing that service to these remote locations, because it's really the only way they would get education.
Absolutely. And we mirror that too. I mean, in your larger metro areas, absolutely, you're offering that as a complementary source of education for large metros. We mirror some of those remote locations too. You know, they don't have the opportunity to get designation classes. They don't have the opportunity to get different instructors. So that was really the way we went about it, is offering as a member service, so that our locals in our more rural areas, they pay the dues just like everyone else. So we needed to up our game to ensure that all of our members were getting proper training and had professional development opportunities available to them.
Yeah, one of the side benefits that we've seen too is that it's got people from all over the state actually talking to one another outside of a conference or a winter meeting. They're actually interacting and networking, you know, during breaks and that sort of thing, and really building some connections there, which, as we know, is one of the most critical parts of being a successful realtor, is making those connections and building that network. So there's been a lot of side benefits. I mean, one of the things I was talking to Doug about last night was the voting record for, you know, our students that take the GRI, for example. You know, it's much higher than what we see for a regular realtor. Those are the kinds of things that when you can reach everybody, you're making a difference. You're having an impact, you know. And so I think that those are the kinds of things that I want to start looking at, you know, and start measuring is what kind of impact are we having, you know, both from their skills and their knowledge, but also understanding on their part that the association matters beyond MLS.
What Deb said.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard. It's hard, you know. So you think of when I first started taking, you know, real estate courses, a big value was to be able to network with participants, right? And the instructors had little activities that allowed us to do that effectively, you know, to exchange cards. Well, it's like, how do you do that in the remote environment if you're not all sitting in the same room? Well, a beauty that we have today is with social media. It's so easy to be able to connect, but how many times in the remote environment will an instructor use some sort of call it an exercise to start to engage participants, so they can realize that you know, even though I'm just looking at a computer screen or I'm sitting in a classroom with, you know, a few people, that there's a whole lot more that are engaged with the material that could be potential referral partners.
Absolutely.
And I want to ask you. We'll go back to Deb here. You know, we've been focused more on the instructors side of it. On the institutional side, we don't have to get into specific numbers, but I want you to kind of share with me either the model or the impact that it had on revenue and expenses compared to what it potentially could have been. I know trying to, you know, when I was speaking with another group trying to put something together, they wanted to do more live. It was economically infeasible to pull it off. Well, now you can do it. If you wouldn't mind sharing some of those lessons learned, I think it'd be value for everybody to hear.
Well, we went from we had just live classroom, and that's really all we had a partnership with an online provider, but we didn't do anything online, so everything was live. And there was a huge audience that we were missing as a result of that because of all the remote locations I was talking about. And we went from a model where it was 100% classroom instructor in the room to where we're doing the broadcast, and that's about 40% of our revenue at this point. Wow. And and that's like, so that's above and beyond the live classroom, because that didn't stop. It's all above and beyond that. So yeah, budget and finance was pretty happy with me when we started turning around those kinds of numbers.
Do you guys, I don't know, for those that are listening, do you guys hear that? 40, was it in the first year, 40% increase in revenue?
It was the second year we increased our revenue by 40%. Yeah, when we started offering.
On the equipment, how fast did you make your money back because the technology is somewhat expensive. I mean, it's more than like a projector.
No, it's really not. I mean, the VTEL equipment is so cost effective. It really is. And I know Richard Ford, who's the CEO there, would just love me right now because I'm promoting him. But it's equipment that is just it's ready to go. You know, it's just you just plug it in and it matches up with Zoom perfectly. Zoom is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that everybody isn't using that because of how cost effective it is. Mm-hmm. and all the options that it offers, you know, recording, Facebook Live, you know, being able to do webinars where you can have multiple people that are speakers. I mean, it just has, we've been very happy with it. I know there's a lot of options out there, but when you look at the cost of what it costs to have a Zoom account and getting, you know, the camera and the equipment in-house, you can recover it in one class.
Yeah, that is the beauty of the way technology has advanced, is that it has come down in price, and it's also increased the ease of use, because not everybody's tech savvy out in the field, and that's the last thing you need is 15 phone calls when a class is trying to go live. I can't connect, I can't hear you, I can't see you.
Yeah.
And with the products available now, it's plug and play. Turn on the camera and here you go. I mean, that's why Deb is on camera with us today.
That's a good one. I'm sorry, it's my fault, because if I had followed our own rules where you get everybody on ahead of time and make sure everything's working before you go live, then but I had an unavoidable delay this morning, and I apologize.
I'm just messing with you, Deb.
I know, it's not your fault. It's Doug's fault.
So I take full responsibility. You know, it's so funny. Anything technology, anytime it breaks, it's like, oh, the tech guy should know this.
Yeah. Who's that? Who's the tech guy?
But if it breaks, right? If it breaks the first time, it's like, oh, we're never doing that again, right? But But how many times have, like, if it doesn't work and then you have a mentality of, okay, well, how do you make it better or make it work better next time?
Right. And you do have to have that. I mean, we had the location that was actually the broadcast point, and half the city lost their power, and therefore they lost their Wi-Fi. And we had to take, like, okay, we're going to take a 30-minute break, and the instructor had to drive across town to reconnect at another location. But we did it, and the class was held. We pulled it off. We'll do anything. Anything to educate our members.
So I just a quick story here. I'll never forget. This was before Zoom. This was like 2006 or 7 when WebEx was super popular, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody. Well, I don't know. I only know one company that uses WebEx now. But we used it for a committee meeting, right? And Tessa Holtz, I don't know, she's now in Raleigh. She was the education director, and I was on the education committee. We did our very first meeting on WebEx through the conference call, and it never happened again because of the mentality there was, well, if that didn't work, we're never going to try that again. And boy, I mean, how many? You have to wonder. I mean, we're kind of off the topic of education here, but how many folks now are having these types of meetings where you're not in the same meeting not in the same room in order to work together?
It's not uncommon for us to have 5 or 6 Zoom meetings going on in a day, because we're using it for, if we have any professional standards meetings, or hearings, we're using it for that so that staff doesn't have to travel. We're using it for leadership meetings. We're even using it. I think it's today that we're delivering a spokesperson training class to a remote location because it just wasn't cost effective. And the time wise, it was just not going to work for the vice president to travel to that location. So it's great for that. And it's really solved a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, I appreciate you both sharing those. I know
we got off the topic of instructors, but I think that the thing we have to keep to draw it back is that we have to continue to urge our instructors and find instructors who are comfortable teaching in that environment and that can, really up the game, start talking about outcomes instead of objectives and really start following up with the member and providing something different than what everybody else is doing.
Well, let's switch gears here because I want to address this mindset of hours versus outcomes, because with this project that we're working on, first the instructors, once they sign up for the program, and this is going to be available. It's it's not just Tennessee instructors. They will get a substantial discount, but it'll be open for anybody to attend. And we'll share the links on how people can learn more about it. But the instructor will have to take an assessment that's 100 questions, right? And then there's the 2-day intensive workshop that, it is like intensive to cover that amount of material and 300 actionable items. That's a lot of content to be able to cover. But the mindset is well, let's sit in a room for a couple days and then wish everybody good luck and hope people implement. So Steve, I'm so glad that we decided to implement some Zoom coaching to be able to follow up with instructors from when they get stuck, right? If they try to download Zoom and then they get stuck or they can't figure something out, or it's like you sit in a class for a couple days and then you forget something or you write it down, you would have learned more. There's never opportunity, so we're able to do that. So Steve, I'm so glad we were able to agree upon to allow instructors to kind of participate in this type of environment, not just screen to screen, but when we get into screen share and we get into digital whiteboards and really like the process of remote coaching. Even though I don't know if you guys both have a copy of this. How we do it. This is like the process on how.
Who wrote that again? I couldn't see the author. What
was that?
It's I don't know. It was published by McGraw Hill, and the CEO of Zoom endorsed it. So,
well, looky there.
Took away his picture.
Sorry for the shameless plug there, but
his selfish plug.
Well, no, and the reason why I asked that is because how many times do you see your instructors kind of slip or not be able to implement as much that was covered in the curriculum that you put together for the workshop? No, I'm sorry, I said it really fast, which was a question.
You have to talk slow. I'm from Tennessee.
And I'm from Texas.
Rephrase the question.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to rephrase. Looking at, if we have a program that we attend, an instructor workshop, 1 or 2 day. How much more can we get instructors to improve themselves, which then improve the foundation or the association and the consumers? Kind of like there's trickle down effect. If we were to have some of this video coaching in place, which wasn't ever really available before, because it's like, now the event's over, we check the box. So what type of opportunities do you think instructors have to, or where do you see them getting stuck, where now they could move past because they have this option?
Well, I think they're going to be thirsty for it, and they need to sharpen their tool set. And this is something that is focused just for them.
I think particularly with some of the newer instructors, that this is absolutely amazing to have that kind of coaching after the fact and really help them to up their game. I think you're going to have some of the older instructors who are going to be resistant to any kind of change because they've been teaching the same way for a very long time. So, there's going to be some challenges with it, regardless of how good it is, because you're going to have some older instructors who are quite confident in the way that they teach, and embracing something that's different is going to be, might be challenging. And I understand. If I've been doing something for, 20 years, I'm going to feel pretty confident that the way I'm doing it is working. But I think that we have to realize that we have a younger and younger audience as far as members, and that things are different than what they were, 20 years ago. So we have to help our instructors to gain some new skills, and they're not going to get it anywhere else.
Well, and they're going to rely on us to be able to assure them that when we're trying to sell this product or have them endorse and buy on emotionally, that we trust it. And if we trust it, they should as well.
Well, here's a question for both of you. You have the internal locus of learning, which means like I know and I have all the answers, or you have an external locus of learning, means that I don't know, I don't have all the answers, but I want to go get them. If you were the instructor that you're gonna hire next to teach a program, whether it's for GRI or it's for CE, or maybe it's for convention, who are you going to hire? Are you going to prioritize? Are you going to hire the one who has internal locus of learning, or the one who has external locus of learning?
Go ahead, Steve.
I want someone that's going to go out and keep sharpening their toolbox. Because in my philosophy is, if you're going to go out and search for more to help yourself, then there's some learning involved in that search that can help you close the loop in some areas. And also you might find other examples, other case studies, other ways of doing things that others have already implemented that you can implement to make sure that your classroom experience is a good one. How'd I do? What do I win?
I have
You win a book.
Example. We have an instructor that is that has 2 masters. She is booked so much in the year that it's hard to even squeeze in any classes. And right now she's pursuing her doctorate. So I think that answers your question. I want somebody who wants to continue to learn, that doesn't believe that they know all the answers, that they are continually learning and finding out better ways of delivering education, finding out more information, knowledge, whatever that might be, having that continual thirst for knowledge like we want our members to have, right?
And I think going back to the analogy is you do need someone that is self-confident enough. So there's that locus that is realize that they can go out and find this. So I don't know. I had hocus pocus come in my head, but I know we're not teaching witchcraft here. Just we're trying to focus on real estate.
Well, guys, one last question for the both of you here, and I really appreciate your time here. This is I know I've made some notes here that going to help kind of improve what we're doing. Let's pretend we never had this conversation, and Steve, we never talked, and this program never would have happened, and things would have continued to happen the way they always have been for as long as I can remember, at least starting 14 years ago. What's the cost? What's the cost to the profession, the industry, and maybe even the association if we did nothing? What's the cost? What are we risking? What are we risking if we did nothing, or we continue to do things the way that we've always done?
You want me to jump in?
Absolutely.
I think we're risking the association overall. I think that we have to come up with some ways of being the best source for education. We have to up our game, because if we don't, there isn't going to be any driving force that the member really wants and really needs, that we're in a position to deliver to them.
And so so what does that mean?
I think that we're, that I really believe that we have advocacy. Obviously, we have the legal hotline. All of those things are important, but I think the day-to-day member sees education as one of the top 3 benefits that they receive from the association. And if we aren't delivering something that's better than what they can get somewhere else, then they're not gonna come to us. We have to be, the source for knowledge and education that they can apply in their business in order for them to be successful, or they're going to go somewhere else and education is going to fall off as far as being one of those member benefits that they see as a driving force for being a member.
I agree. We were in a very fortunate situation where we touch single business owners every day. They're independent contractors that can go out and make a difference, and our education is what keeps them valuable to the consumer and also reduces risk.
Man,
yeah, I think overall that we have to convey to our members that the differential between them and a license holder is education, is knowledge, is having that really firm grasp of what the heck they're talking about. You're holding your head, Doug.
I know.
I don't know. It's
knowledge. It's so heavy.
No, it is heavy. And here's where. Okay, we're not going to go off in too big of a tangent here because I think this is relevant. But I don't think these tough questions are asked enough. And frankly, if these questions aren't asked and we just say, "Oh, everything's going to fine," or "Everything's going to work out," or whatever, like you said, right now, at least in Canada, they're having a discussion whether or not it's going to be optional to belong to the provincial association, which is like the state association, in the U.S. Now I don't know if that's going to go through or not, but those are like the types of discussions that are happening. So there's pressure on just about everything, which is why I think what we're doing here is to help support this so that it doesn't go away. I mean, this is what our passion is. I mean, we wouldn't be doing this full time, if it wasn't our passion. So
yeah, somehow we have to convey to people in charge or the people at the top that education does matter, and it is it is something that's critical to our success. Because I think that not doing that, continuing to see education as something that's just kind of a second thought, or yeah, we have to do that, and not being a critical part of it, that's not what the member is saying. You know, that's not the feedback that we're getting from the member. They see education as being something that's a huge benefit that they receive from the association. Mm-hmm. So we need to deliver, and we need to make sure that it's the very best. That's my closing statement, by the way.
That's great. Well, I'm bummed we couldn't get get your camera to where we'll make sure that we
maybe next time. Yeah, we'll try to do better.
Yeah, well,
I appreciate you guys. I'm honored that you would ask me to be on here at all. Two of the brilliant minds in the industry. So I am honored that you would ask me to participate in it at any level.
I have so much respect for Deb Waldman. Lots of love there.
Yep, absolutely. Mutual respect, dear.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Deb. This is on Facebook. Anybody can go to the Doug DeVitri Certified Speaking Professional page and obviously watch the recording, make comments. So even though we have the conversation that's recorded, it still goes on, right? And so if anybody wants to leave a comment there, to type in, you know, even the tough question, ask the tough question. You know, we'll address it. There's a lot of work to be done, and I'm just so grateful that we have the opportunity to be able to work together on this. So thank you all. Thanks for participating.
Thank you. Make sure those questions aren't too tough. I'm sensitive.
You can handle it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay.